legislature. I stand bold here to say, the Senate, the public accounts committees of the National Assembly sit every day, every working day. And in a week, at minimum, we are supposed to be attending to 10 to 15 agencies. These 10 to 15 agencies, if we are lucky, 3, 4 appear. That's why, while presenting my remarks yesterday, I said head of agencies should not be shying away or be scared from coming to. These queries emanated from your daily responsibilities. So it is just for you to come and prove otherwise of what the queries are, so that we get going with the challenges posed by the paper presented by Mr. Frederick. I don't think there is any concerned Nigerian here that was not negatively hit by those challenges. And it is not that we are not doing what we are doing. I mean, we're supposed to be doing. We are. So please, to us and all of us, let the needful always be done. Mr. Frederick, the vision must be politically driven. And by that, the vision should come from the politicians. But for the people to be carried along, the politicians should be much closer to the people, so that the better they understand, the higher understanding, or the higher the education, or the higher the enlightenment, the better the understanding of what we do, and the better they understand, the much more they. This is my, I don't know, my comment or my good day.
Thank you very much, sir. Just a few other comments from my end. I also want to thank you for that very thought-provoking presentation, and make a few comments. The first one also starting with the issue of how vision emanates and who drives the vision. You see, one problem I see is in the area of communication of vision. Like I did say yesterday in my remark, if anybody looks at that chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution, unfortunately, that chapter 2 is said to be non-actionable. But if you look at all the objectives stated in that chapter, economic objectives, social objectives, environmental objectives, and so on and so forth, those are the vision of the Nigerian nation. Those are the destination that every political leadership should take the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So whatever manifesto you are bringing up as a politician must center around those visions enshrined in the Constitution. And I look forward to a day when that section that makes chapter 2 inactionable will be amended, so that people can go to court and ask for specific performance of those visions of our country. Now, let me also talk about the issue of late financial reporting. The Accountant General is no longer in here. I would have wished that he is here. of Reps, and as is going for public hearing now. So there's something being done on the review of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. The House has done first and second reading, awaiting public hearing, and then we'll move on to the other stage. I just think I should provide those contexts. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bamdele Salam. Do we still have more reactions, more feedback? Just stand and then we'll bring the microphone to you. Thank you. Okay, great.
Thank you for the opportunity again. I think the speaker did highlight the need for public financial management reforms. And I'm just wondering if the Senate Committee and the House Committee will be considering having an integrated portal that digitizes budgeting process, such that as the budget is approved, everything is digitally available, and there will be a link to the BPP portal, so that there will be real tracking, because with that, transparency will be enhanced, failures or successes will be tracked, and the citizens, if given the access, will also be part of that process. So I would appreciate if we'll have some clarity on this. Thank you.
We'll take like two more before Mr. Two? Yeah, or one? Two, yeah. 30 seconds each. Can you stand, ma'am, so they see you? Thank you. Okay, so that's the last person, right? Yeah. Excellent.
Well, mine is just, I want clarification from the last speaker, that is the senator from the National Assembly. Year in, year out, in times of procurement process, the same National Assembly that approved the budget and also have their constituency projects will now be using their letter-headed paper to introduce their preferred contractors to execute contract in all MDAs. When it is supposed to be transparent, when it's supposed to be competitive, I want to ask, is that appropriate for the same National Assembly? We do that to MDAs. When we are talking of, a transparent process in Procurement Act, please, I want this to be looked into. That is why we salvage Nigeria in times of governance, discharge of true governance. You have constituency project, allow every competent Nigeria contractor to go and bid. But you have your constituency project, you want to have your own contractor. Then another thing is that after all of those execution of projects and whatnot, the same National Assembly again, I believe they will soon call us after execution. Bring document for oversight functions. And to me, oversight functions is being done, go to the MDS, sort for the relevant documents, sit with either, all the relevant, officers, and do your oversight. But they will sit at the glass house and write to all MDS that they should submit documents regarding so procurement execution year. And let me tell you that at that time, all MDS will struggle because some of even their photocopying machine cannot even afford to print those documents that National Assembly will be requesting for. I remember some will go to business center and spend millions to get those documents and then pack them in big Ghana bags them in buses to National Assembly and meet them seated in their offices. And then they will keep MDS for hours. Sometimes they will say, come back tomorrow. These are people we voted for. Come back tomorrow, come back tomorrow. And at the end of the day, all the documents that we suffered and loaded it with boss, they keep it aside. It's the same public accounts committee that you now go and meet the chairman committee, and he will say this, that, and that, and that, and that. Please, can that be stopped? You will see them introducing contractors in their own letter-headed papers to MDS. Is that not criminals? Yeah. Thank you.
I hope you didn't say you're MDA.
All right, madam, thank you. You literally set the hall on fire. Thank you very much indeed. So we are done with questions and reactions, and then Mr. Riaga will respond now.
Chairman, let's listen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Madam, let me first assure you that you are covered. Let me give you that assurance that you are covered. So nobody should think, if anybody says anything here, this is a conference. And if we cannot be brutally frank, we'll be deceiving ourselves. So please, you are not allowing her to listen to the response. Madam, so thank you for those observations. I think one of these issues you raised it somewhere before that I don't know whether you were the same person. Okay, it was not you. All right. On the first issue that you raised about recommendation of contractors, the response I gave when that person raised it is that while it is wrong for anybody to recommend that you use a contractor for any job, we have agreed it is wrong. You are not under any obligation to accept that recommendation. So if anyone, listen very well, if anyone, hello madam, it's just like if you are a medical doctor and a patient comes to the hospital and begins to dictate to you what kind of injection you should give him, what kind of drug you should give him, what you should not do. As a medical doctor, and you say because that's how they say I should do, you do it, you will be liable and you will lose your license. So while condemning that act, I am saying that you also have a responsibility to stand up to do your job according to the specification of the law and the regulation of the land. And that stands you as a public servant. Number two, the issue that you made about oversight. You said we are not in glass house, madam. We don't live in glass house. Your intent in making that observation is very clear, and it is I believe noble. But you will agree with me that it will be practically impossible for a committee like the Public Account Committee, for example, to begin to go to agencies after the other to sit down with them and say, we want to check your documents. The burden that you have about getting documents submitted to committees when you are asked is a burden that we all share. We also don't want our committee rooms littered with papers and sacks. And in the Public Account Committee, if I can't see of any other committee, since the past 2 years, we have started a process of digitizing our operation in a manner that there is no agency here, and I challenge you here, that we have called to ask that you bring 40, 50 copies in the last 2 years of this Public Account Committee. If you are an agency here, and you have a letter from our committee saying bring 40, 50 copies, I challenge you to produce it. We will never tell you that. We are doing a digitization which makes us do less of paperwork. And the most we can tell you now is, okay, produce 10 copies, because no matter what you say, there are still people who still need to work with hard copies. And you will agree with me, even in your own establishment, there are people that still have problem with transition into the electronic, documents and what have you. And we say, okay, bring 10 copies. And when you bring such document before us, even if we don't need your attention at all, we won't call you. If we analyze your document and there's no need for you to appear, we will not even invite you. If we invite you, it is because there are identified gaps in the submissions that you have made. Like I say, I may not speak for all committees. We have over 100 committees, but I can speak for the Public Account Committee, which I chair, which my leader chairs, that we have exhibited a high sense of understanding in that regard to place less burden, especially on documentation, to our various MDAs. But even after doing that, I just told you, and if you want us to bring the document, we will bring it, of agencies here writing letters repeatedly asking for postponement of hearings, giving one excuse or the other, to the extent that after 4, 5, 6 times, the whole thing that will happen is that the PS who was writing has now been transferred to another ministry. The Director of Finance is now somewhere else, and then frustrating the conduct of that investigation. So it's a shared responsibility between us and you as our electors. We agree you elected us, but please allow us to do the job that the Constitution has given us to do. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Madam, for that challenge, or those challenges. Just to buttress on what he said, if any member of the National Assembly writes you introducing a company, I think no company is awarded any contract by any agency if that company is not registered as a contractor with that agency. And even if the company is registered, you have your requirements. In the event that you find out that that company is not fit and proper, all-encompassing, don't just refuse to give the contract. Write back to the member of the National Assembly. Sir, this is to let you know that the company you introduce is not qualified. And so we have not considered it. That may send a message. And bureaucratically, you would have satisfied the requirements of rules of engagement. It's as simple as that. The day anything comes up, you have that document to show. He had introduced a company to us that we found not fit and proper, and we responded to him or to her in writing. There shouldn't be compromises at all. Of course, for every privileged position one gets is to benefit from it. But it is not for anybody to benefit at the detriment of the larger society or at the detriment of the rules of engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sorry, with your kind permission, Chairman, this gentleman here wants to say something in 30 seconds.
Okay. Please, my question here is on the presenter. I remain Said Abdullahi, Age, Niger State. Actually, our institutions need reforms. I could remember we keyed into the SIPTAS program where subnational governments went in. We are made to produce our financial statements at least before June and all this like that. If you go to the state website, you will see all those things. So I think it's very, very important. Also, the budget cycle should be looked into because we have the problem of budget deficit. And maybe as you extend the budget cycle, the government continue to get money and there was no end to it. So the National Assembly need to fix time for the budget cycle to curtail it so that to enable the accountants also to prepare their financial statement in time. If not, there's no end to it. And another thing I want the man who presented this thing to do is that, we continue to have budget deficit, and the way we finance budget is by borrowing and all this. Can we take the example of Kenya Revenue Authority? Because in Kenya Revenue Authority, you have KPI. Everybody is given an assignment and target to bring. If you cannot bring that target, you cannot meet that target, even if it is 90%, you cannot get promoted. Because if you are 90%, the 10%, who makes up the 10%? Then the 10% will be the cumulative, something that government will have to borrow. But if you have met up with your responsibilities 100%, there's no need for government to go and borrow unnecessarily. So I think we need to look into this thing and do peer review so that we can also do something better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Riaga, you want to respond?
Thank you very much, because that is still fresh in my mind. Let me have a go at it. The Kenya Revenue Authority, yes, the revenue performance is almost on target, but not on target. And our budget is equally, partially debt financed. And then when you ask about debt, then it gets an interesting conversation. Debt is not necessarily bad. It's how you use it that informs whether it turns out bad or good. I want to pause and tell you that globally, the developed countries that you see, if you look at their debt books, you will run mad. Nigeria, you're at 93% to your GDP. Japan is at 259% of their GDP. US is at 117% of their GDP. The UK is at 110. And I pause and look at the Japanese model and say, so how do they survive? They borrow smart. They pick up debt and invest the money. That's it. In our constitution, the government is obligated not to borrow for recurrent expenditure. It's for development expenditure. Do we have a mechanism for ascertaining the debt capacity of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? By way of, I saw a debt management office. Does it generate a policy outlook paper that ascertains its debt capacity? So borrowing is not bad. It's what do we put the money into is the main issue. Mr. Chair, my comments would then be summarized under just one thing. Because I see the issue here is timelines. And you have, if the Fiscal Responsibility Act is up for review, when I did my reading, it is the law upon which the budget process is anchored. Then we have an opportunity, therefore, to prescribe timelines. My country, Kenya, budget process starts in August. Our financial year ends on 30th of June. The budget for the subsequent year starts in August. We would have to do a budget review outlook paper, just as going back and saying, what was the previous budget like? How did we do? What was the operating environment that impeded actualization of that budget, which is then considered by Parliament before the fiscal strategy paper is then developed. By February, we have a clear understanding how much we are going to spend in terms of what are the priorities that government is establishing. So on budgeting, I think that is, I wouldn't blame the Accountant General, I wouldn't blame the Auditor General if the budget process has no definite cutoff point, then you would expect spillovers. Let's first seal that process. Let's have a definite budget against which public expenditure is then monitored and reported on. That would be my response. Thank you very much for having me. But, sorry, I've remembered something. The issue of vision, my senior, and with a lot of humility, I do state this. I made the reference having looked at the constitution of the Nigerian people. Point number 2, I was influenced by what happens in my country. In my country, the president has taken decisions that he did not consult the people. The courts nullify. Because we have put people engagement at the center of every public discourse. A budget, remember last year? He was forced to withdraw a whole finance bill for the simple reason that the young people said you did not consult us adequately. A budget was pulled down after Parliament had considered and approved it. It was taken back for further review. So it is on that basis that we then say, how do we enable them to come to you, to engage with you in a collaborative manner? Point number 2, and my final comment, I think it's incumbent upon the leadership to bring up the electorate to some fair level of understanding of public policy so that you can have a discourse, so that you can effectively consult, so that you can have them as effective partners in the accountability sphere. I submit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frederick Riaga. Thank you very much. This conversation will continue at the technical workshop breakout session, I am sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, distinguished guests. Ladies and don't like this mic. Ladies and gentlemen, good. Our next guest is a man who does not need sirens to command attention. His presence alone sends shivers down the spine of you-know-who. A man whose handshake might just come with a subtle reminder, if they chop public money, chop them fast, because I'm coming for you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, ably represented at this event by Mr. Wilson Wujiaren, Director of Public Affairs, as he makes his way here for his chairman's keynote address. So this will be wrapped up in less than 20 minutes, Mr. Wujiaren. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please permit me to rely on the protocol already established by the Masters of Ceremony. I first of all want to convey the apologies of the Executive Chairman of EFCC, Mr. Ola Olukede. Until about 30 minutes ago, he was very sure that he will be here in person. But due to some operational exigencies, he is unable to be with us this afternoon. So he has mandated me to present his keynote to this distinguished audience. I crave the indulgence of members of the committee to please bear with me. And the Executive Chairman is somebody that holds this august body, National Assembly, so to speak, in very high esteem. So that he's not here is something that he didn't plan for. So I'll go ahead and present his keynote. I'm honored to address this important gathering, focused on fiscal governance, a subject that sits at the heart of our national survival. Effective fiscal management isn't just a policy conversation. It's about the lives and futures of millions of Nigerians. Despite years of reforms and development plannings, the gap between policy intent and public impact remains very wide. A major part of the problem lies in systemic weaknesses that encourages waste, inefficiency, and outright theft of public resources. Some of the vulnerabilities in fiscal accountability include non-compliance with financial regulations. I'm sure most earlier speakers have identified this factor. Those who are familiar with the operations of the Nigerian Public Service will recall issues like approval beyond limits of specific officers, unapproved duty toll allowances, and outright diversion of public funds into private pockets. Also, another weakness that we have identified at the EFCC is weak oversight and budget accountability issues. We have identified a situation in which committees of the National Assembly that are supposed to oversight some MDAs are a bit lacking in terms of fidelity to their responsibility. And these are giving leeway to some agencies of government to do the wrong things. Also, another factor that we recognize is the opaque financial reporting system, especially in the oil and gas sectors, where earnings remains rather speculative rather than factual. Also prevalent in the public service is occurrence of digital fraud. We are familiar with the manipulation of platforms like the GiveMix and IPPIS for payroll fraud. These weaknesses feed corruption and erode public trust. What I've just given is a summary of the challenges that we have with accountability and fiscal governance within the public sector. And all of you that are familiar with the activities of the EFCC in the last 21 years will recognize that what the EFCC has been doing over the years is trying to enhance accountability in the public service and also part of the private sector. From what we have done in terms of our investigation and prosecution of culprits, we have tried to send a message that when you do the wrong thing, there has to be punishment for it. And our conviction profile tells that story. Apart from the investigation and prosecution of those who do wrong things, especially stealing public funds, EFCC has also been very strong in terms of recovering proceeds of crime in both the public and private sectors. Our monetary asset recovered by the Commission runs into trillions of naira, and some of these resources have been plowed back into the economy. Last year, for instance, the Commission recovered a landmark asset in Abuja, an estate of 750 duplexes. As I speak to you, we have recovered and returned funds to critical government institutions. For instance, monies recovered by the EFCC and returned to the NDDC, the Niger Delta Development Commission, was recently committed by that agency to build a skill acquisition center for youths in the Niger Delta. Part of that resources was also used in developing a liaison office for the agency in Yenagoa, the capital of Bayelsa State. I'm also glad to also inform you that part of the process of crime that the Commission recovered was also converted by the federal government for the takeoff of what is now known as the Federal University of Applied Sciences in Kacha, Kaduna State. That university, the asset of that university was actually recovered from a former Director of Finance Account of the Federal Ministry of Health. Proceeds of crime recovered by the EFCC was also the takeoff fund for critical national social investment program, including the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NEFund, and then the Consumer Credit Scheme, Credico. 100 billion naira was taken from the EFCC recovery account as takeoff grant for these two institutions, which are meant to alleviate poverty and also promote inclusion in our country. And youngsters who ordinarily would not have the resources to further their tertiary education today enjoying that what should have been a luxury courtesy of the recovered proceeds of crime by the EFCC. We are liaising currently with the Federal Ministry of Housing to apply recovered assets for affordable housing directly benefiting low-income Nigerians. Ladies and gentlemen, our approach is not just about chasing after stolen funds. We are proactively stopping financial crimes from happening. In the last 18 months, EFCC has established a full-fledged Department of Fraud Risk Assessment and Control to strengthen internal controls in ministries, departments, and agencies. We have also strengthened synergy and collaboration with both local and international law enforcement agencies to proactively stop illicit financial flows. We as an agency believe that enforcement alone cannot stop corruption within the public sector. And we believe that rather than chase after those who steal our common patrimony, it's best to stop corruption before it occurs. And that is the reason why the Commission, under the leadership of Mr. Ola Olukudi, established the Department of Fraud Risk Assessment and Control, which is mandated to use intelligence-based investigation to tackle the issues of physical irresponsibility and unethical practices within all government establishments in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that these steps, coupled with the bold fiscal reforms under the current administration, especially the removal of fuel subsidy and the unification of exchange rates, will enhance fiscal transparency in the public sector. However, let us not pretend that the job is done. The time we are in calls for greater vigilance by all stakeholders in the Nigerian project. By stakeholders, I refer to even public officers themselves, non-state actors, and members of the public. Deepening fiscal transparency and sustainable development demands the following. First, public account committees must go beyond annual reviews to an oversight to proactively look at issues that demands proper attention and also take punitive measures against agencies of government that violate extant rules and regulation in terms of public accounting and reporting. Incidentally, just sitting down there, I could listen to some of the issues that arise when these committees oversight MDAs, and I believe the take home from this engagement is to ensure that we don't do the wrong thing. Also, digital tracking of budget and project must become the norm. Citizens should be able to see in real time what is spent and where. Also, procurement and payroll loopholes must be closed with robust automation and citizen participation. We also must institutionalize a whistleblower system to check blatant stealing of public funds. No system will work without the right people. That is why the EFCC is pushing for integrity testing for public officers across MDAs. We require these tests because the quantum of resources that is stolen in our agencies annually is rather mind-boggling. And the time has come for us to know the mental composition and then the behavioral traits of those who aspire to both to lead us and occupy privileged position in all our public services. Parliament, again, cannot demand accountability if it does not practice it. The lady that asked that wonderful question a couple of minutes ago actually speak to this issue. Fiscal integrity must be the norm in all organs of government. Legislators must embrace transparent appropriation, resist personal enrichment schemes, and any actions that erode public trust. You can't be demanding accountability and you are not also submitting yourself to rules and regulations. So Parliament must lead by example. There's also a need for greater synergy and collaboration between the public accounts committees of the National Assembly and even state assemblies with the EFCC. To the best of my knowledge, I am not aware of any report by this committee that has been forwarded to the EFCC for further investigation. I urge members of this distinguished committee to, as a matter of national interest, leverage on the enforcement powers of the EFCC, to which will invariably help to send a powerful message that the Public Accounts Committee's job is far from a routine exercise. In closing, I leave you with a clarion call. Let's institutionalize transparency and make accountability a perpetual duty by enforcing rules and regulations in our statutes. Together, we can make Nigeria a nation where fiscal governance delivers real value for the Nigerian people. On that note, I want to thank you for listening and wish you fruitful deliberations. Thank you all.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Wilson Uwujaren, Director of Public Affairs at the EFCC. It is good to note that the EFCC has continued to distinguish itself as a pillar in Nigeria's fight against corruption, with an unwavering commitment to transparency and accountability. The Commission has not only recovered billions in looted funds, but has also sent a clear message that financial crimes will not go unchallenged. A round of applause once more for Wilson Owojare. Thank you, brilliantly delivered. Professor Miriam Ishaku, your attention is needed. If you're here, can you just signify your attention is needed? Professor Miriam Ishaku. All right. We are setting the stage for the next plenary session 2. And the topic is public accounts oversight and institutional roles. Public accounts oversight and institutional roles. The subtopic is Supreme Audit Institutions, SAIS, and legislative oversight, enhancing independence and impact. While we get the stage set, let me quickly say that the moderator of this session 2 is Mr. John Mutu, Executive Director, African Parliament Resource Center, APRC. And before he comes on, let me quickly make a few recognitions. We want to recognize the presence of Engineer Olatunji Akio CFNS, Adodo Ota Federal Constituency in Ogun State, Honorable Gwancham Morin, Oyi Ayamelum Federal Constituency of Anambra State, Honorable Joshua Audu Gana, Member House of Representatives, Deputy Chairman, House Committee on Power in the 10th Assembly. He's a member representing Labun, Mokwa, Edati Federal Constituency in Niger State. We have the honor of the presence of Boyega Isiaka representing Yewa North, Imeko constituency. Honorable Mukhtar Umar Zakari, Deputy CM Capital Markets and Institution representing Tirani Federal Constituency. Okay, so are we set? 1 second, please, excuse me. All right, so we'll delve right into the second plenary session. Again, the topic is public accounts, oversight, and institutional roles, with a subtopic, Supreme Audit Institutions and legislative oversight, enhancing independence and impact. And our moderator is Mr. John Mutu, Executive Director, African Parliamentary Resource Center, APRC. He'll bring the other panel discussants on stage as we kick off this session. Thank you.
Dear Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's been a long day, so we'll try as much as possible not to deny you your lunch. We'll try to abridge the program as much as possible. But I also recognize the importance of this panel, and I pray that we'll make it in such a way that you are not bored.
No audit is like licensing people to do as they want. Audit is necessary to instill confidence nationally and internationally. Failure to audit or not auditing at the appropriate time brings the financial misappropriation and crisis, which is a problem we are having today in Nigeria. Our problem is not because we don't have sufficient laws. Our problem is not because we don't have the regulations, but lack of the implementation, lack of guiding them. Audit is like the police. No police, no prosecutors, criminality will have its way. So it is very necessary that we do not joke with audit the timeline. There must be somebody monitoring the activities of the general, whether he's doing it timeously. And two, the manner of appointment, of removal and sacking should be made independent. They should insist on their own, because a lot of things you want some persons to do, they can't do it because of political interference, because they call the tall shots. Even the audit, the park, they may not operate fully, because there's always interference. You know that guy is our party man, or you know that guy is our man, and so on. And such things will limit what they need to do. Therefore, we must be able to have build a strong institution. In fact, the institution should even be stronger than the law. Because when you have a strong institution, then you can talk about a better implementation. EFCC themselves is because they are trying to build a strong institution. That is why they're able to do the much they are achieving now. Therefore, in the intervention, there should be legislative intervention to bridge all the gaps and so on. The politicians are not the problem, it's the weak institution, it's in the whole system.
Thank you so very much. Yes, Ifeanyi, you've had the opportunity of working closely with the federal government and the state supporting budget reforms. But look, the current federal government budget cycle seems, challenged in terms of proper sequencing, like we talked about an alignment, right? How can the federal government work towards realigning the budget cycle to ensure timelines, accounting and audit? And Mr. Frederick also in his presentation did talk about that, the linkage between the budget and effective timelines.
Thank you very much, John. I think one of the major things that needs to be done is to refocus attention on making sure that Nigeria meets what you call the budget credibility thresholds. This is important because if the budgeting process, the budget calendar, which highlights the timelines and the timeliness of the budget process from planning, forecasting, budgeting proper, execution, accounting and reporting, and then of course audit is flawed because the overall timeline is not strictly adhered to, then there will always continue to be challenges. Currently, our national budget timeline or calendar is severely challenged. The respective stakeholders has the responsibility, and I think is one of the resolutions that needs to come out of this conference, and both the executive and the National Assembly would have to set up, well, a committee or a task team, more or less a task team, to work towards realigning our budget calendar to make sure that we meet the timelines, and also make sure that the budget is also passed on time, the execution process is respected according to our constitution, according to the budget laws or rules governing our budgeting process. Another thing is also to make sure that the institutional framework, again, this is very crucial, the institutional framework for managing our budget process is adhered to, like the Fiscal Responsibility Act, making sure that there is an institution that oversees both the legislature and the executive. It is difficult to have an institution like the Fiscal Responsibility Commission that probably is beholden to the executive and cannot challenge the executive if there is budgetary infractions. Same thing with the National Assembly. So it is crucial that this action needs to be taken, because if we do not sanitize the current conundrum in our budgetary process, all of the challenges we have about auditing will continue to be, because there's a knock-on effect if the timelines are not strictly adhered to. Thank you.
You're talking about knock-on effects. Just this afternoon we've heard about having multiple budgets. Having multiple budgets. We have the 2025 budget, and we're in July. We also have the 2024 budget extended to December 2025. What is the implication of that for auditing?
The implication of that is complex, and I do not envy the Auditor General of the Federation in that regard, because in all honesty, in all my professional career, I have not seen where you are implementing 3 budgets at the same time. And so the challenge is also back to what I talked about non-functionality of the institutions that make sure that there is strict adherence to the budgetary process and that there is consequences also. So consequences must be there. Penalties must be there. And the enforcement of those penalties is very, very crucial. But first and foremost is to make sure that the institutional framework, the legal framework, and the consequences is clear and is strictly adhered to and enforced. I think in all of these things, if you look at the responsibility of the legislature has a very big responsibility in this regard, because the legislature has the power of the purse. And you have responsibility to maintain the sanctity of the budgetary process. Yeah. And so, again,
I think why this is important, the Auditor General has a responsibility to present his report for this preceding year, right? By September or thereabout. So the question is, if the 2024 budget is still operational as at the end of 2025, when will he now audit the 2025 budget? Can he do that in the middle of the budget operation? And what is the implication of that?
That's why I said I don't envy his position, because it has created a conundrum that will probably take several years to untangle. It's an additional challenge because we're dealing with the fallout of several years of inability to meet the required annual audited budget and accounts. And then we have a challenge of executing and implementing 3 budgets at the same time. So if you look at the timeline, that we still have not concluded the 2022 audit, we potentially may have additional 5 years going forward before we're able to realign that. And like I said earlier on, specific action needs to be taken starting from today, because we'll have another budget cycle. In actual sense, if you really want to maintain the sanctity of the budget calendar, the process should have started in July. So that before the next 2 months, you must conclude the review of the previous year's budget. And I think that is something the National Assembly need to think about.
I think we'll come back to you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Shegun, you've been working closely with both the PACs and the Auditor Generals, both at the federal and the state. But some people have said that the Auditor General has become a toothless bulldog that can only bark but cannot bite. Do you agree with that? And what are the main factors inhibiting their effectiveness, if at all?
Yeah, thank you very much, John, and good afternoon to all our participants as well. What I would say is that I think the role of the Auditor General is clear as per the Constitution. To the extent that the Auditor General audits public accounts and then submits the reports to the National Assembly in the case of the federal government. But the Office of the Auditor General is not an anti-corruption agency and is not expected to, conduct investigative activities. The Auditor General, issues opinion on the accounts that is submitted to him. There are constitutional constraints to the extent that the independence, I would say that the framers of the constitutions are very wise, to have clearly delineated the role of the Auditor General and how the Auditor General should function. Incidentally, the effectiveness is hampered due to certain factors. And one of those is that the finances to the Office of the Auditor General, for instance, when you look at what goes to the Office of the Auditor General, in 2020, compare with anti-corruption agencies like EFCC. EFCC got about 31 billion in 2020, jumped to about 56 billion in 2024. Then Auditor General got about 3.5 billion in 2020, and then moved to 8 billion in 2024. When you compare the roles and the task on their table, you will agree with me that that amount of money. But that's not even worse enough. I think the fact that the Office of the Auditor General, 98% of its budget is centered on recurrent and overheads. Whereas, when you look at the capital spending for EFCC in 2020, out of 31 billion, about 20-something billion was for capital spending. In 2024, out of 56 billion, more than 40 billion was on capital spending. In the case of the Auditor General's office, in 2020, out of 3.5 billion, only 150 million was on capital spending. In 2024, out of 8 billion, only 200 million plus was for capital spending. So when you look at it, you see that there is huge constraint. And the issue about the independence of the office, and I don't want to re-echo some of the challenges that have been talked about already. But what I know is that is possible is that the lawmakers, have an opportunity to re-engineer the system. One of the things that has constrained the Auditor General is the late submission of the financial statement, the consolidated financial statement, and he has alluded to this earlier. The current audit bill that is before the National Assembly solves that problem. It is clear in that bill that the Accountant General has 90 days from the day the financial year ends. So the opportunity to wiggle around and not present the consolidated financial statement to the Auditor General is no longer there. And I think the lawmakers have the opportunity in this regard. The other issue is the timeliness of audits. And I've always said, and the best practice is that we audit and present the reports in 18 months or less and present it to Parliament. The issue about the 2020 report of the Auditor General took more than 30 months. The 2021 took more than 30 months. The 2022 has taken beyond 30 months. We can't continue in that manner. And then also the role of the PAC itself in taking up audits and ensuring that the report of the PAC is in public. But that's hard to do with what's happening at the federal level.
Okay, hold it there. You talked about the independence of the Office of Auditor General.
Yeah.
This afternoon, while Mr. Frederick was making his presentation, he did talk about the Nigerian audit process being regulated by a 1956 ordinance. And I quickly looked at the ordinance. And Mr. Chairman, this is important. And I looked at the ordinance and I saw that while the Constitution just gives the broad framework, I am looking for where the Auditor General got its operational plan from. Because it says the current law is saying that the Auditor General shall conduct regional audits on regional bodies. And I remember as at that time, they were talking about the regions. Absolutely. So as far as our law is concerned, Auditor Generals of states does not exist. Auditor Generals of local government does not exist. The Office of the Auditor General has a responsibility to conduct audits for states and all that. The same law also talks about the Auditor General receiving not more than 2,000 shillings. And I'm asking, where is he getting his salaries from? Is it in shillings or in naira? And finally, the same law which he is operating, and I'm going to ask him where he got that power from, says that he shall be appointed by the Governor General. These are issues. Are you being engaging? What do you say to that?
Well, I think the Constitution, the constitutional provision supersedes the ordinance, right? And Section 85 is clear on who appoints the Auditor General for the Federation and how he draws his salary. My own recommendation is that we have to really absolve the Office of the Auditor General away from the civil service. Not because the office will be independent of everybody, or I mean, the office is subject to the Public Account Committee, that is clear. But is that the administrative procedure for that office shouldn't be subject to the rules of the civil service, so that the Auditor General can hire and fire, the capacity that it requires. Then again, on the issue of the states, Section 125 of the Constitution is also clear and supersedes that provision of the audit ordinance. The constraint that we have seen, and I was happy when the Speaker gave his goodwill message yesterday, and was using data from the Subnational Audit Efficacy Index in his address. I was quite impressed. The constraint that we've seen with the state audit institution is issue around the implementation of the audit laws. For the federal, we are still dealing with the lack of audit law, right? But for states, we have the audit laws in place, but we're struggling with implementation. For now, as of today, 34 out of 36 states have audit laws outside Benue and Anambra states. Only 4 out of these 34 states have also inaugurated the Audit Service Commission or Audit Service Board. And these are, administrative issues with the Office of the Auditor General.
As an Auditor General who is auditing the Federal Civil Commission, the Civil Service Commission, and that Civil Service Commission recruits staff for him. The same Auditor General who is auditing the Ministry of Finance and the Office of the Accountant General, it depends on them for funding. So I wonder how he has been surviving, but we'll come to that. So the AG, one major issue we've come to over the course of time is that the current constitution, specifically in section 85.3, mandates you only to audit federal agencies, right, and ministries and departments, but statutory auditors. What is the implication of that for public accountability?
Thank you very much. Before I go to your question, I want to comment on one of the speakers who said that the National Assembly, when the National Assembly invite them, say 40 copies of documents they will bring and they will not look at it. I will say that the 10th Assembly is a different assembly entirely, because I have worked closely with them, and I used to wonder, where do you get these documents that you are bringing when my staff are more than 28 days, more than 1 month in the organization, and you refuse to give them those documents to work on it, and you are bringing it because the PSC has invited you. Then you go and manufacture documents to go and to bring it to them. Please, I'm talking to my colleagues. I'm having 2 caps as an accounting officer and the Auditor General for the Federation. And I'm saying it that this 10th Assembly is different. I know when they came to oversight my office, and they told me to submit some documents, some documents. When I submitted my documents, I was to appear the following day. They brought up 57 issues. Just a day. So that's to tell you that this 10th Assembly is a different assembly entirely. So they need accommodation. 57 issues that I have to defend. Me as an auditor. So my colleagues, accounting officers, will have to be very, very careful. This is a renewed hope for the federal, for Nigeria. Coming to your question, Section 85, Section 3 talks about auditing. My office audits only ministry, department, and agencies. The corporations that have the highest budget. Let's take the example, Ministry of Petroleum. Look at the budget of Ministry of Petroleum and look at parastatals under Ministry of Petroleum. Their budget is more than that of a ministry, and the ministry is oversighting those parastatals. And these people they are the ones that appoint their auditors to audit them. Auditor General only comment on the account audited by these parastatals. That is a big accountability gap. It is what is given to us that we audit, prepare and present it to us, that we carry out the periodic check and vet and submit to the National Assembly, which is a very big gap.
Yes, you talked about appoint their own auditors and pay them. So if I am paying an auditor to audit me, then definitely the outcome of that audit is already compromised ab initio. But the other question I want you to talk about is, I did say that the audit process is a relay, starting from the Accountant General and up to you. Who is responsible for enforcing the outcome of the PAC reports in that audit value chain? Who is responsible, and what is the challenge in that process?
Thank you very much for that question. Let me tell you a story. When I was a deputy director in the Office of Auditor General, I went to audit Federal Ministry of Works, to carry out performance audit of Federal Ministry of Works. The DFA, after the audit, you have a standard operating practice. When your letter is given to an organization to audit, first you do an entrance conference. After the work, you do an exit conference. And those infractions that they have committed, because the perception, the way you perceive it, it will be different from if you explain, you will get it better. Before we could exist, more than 1 month, we're looking for the DFA. After seeing him, we say, okay, is it not the highest you can do is to take me to a PSC? After taking me to PSC, by the time the audit is considered, I might have retired. So if you want, do whatever you want with it. So those are the challenges that we are facing. And coming to your question, it is the National Assembly. I didn't feel that the Constitution is being reviewed now. They should take into consideration the time frame and the punishment that will be meted to those who commit such infractions. It's very, very important now that the constitutional amendment is going on. It's a very big problem to my staff and the office generally to perform effectively. Thank you.
Very much, sir. And that is a question that the chairman of the two committees will answer after the panel discussion, and that question is very important. Who enforces compliance to the resolutions of the National Assembly on audit queries? But we'll leave it at that for now. Mr. Honorable Medad, can you maybe share your experience on how we can leverage data, research, and technology in the audit process? Can you share your Kenyan experience and, if possible, the Afro-Pac experience as well?
Thank you very much. First, to correct the record, the Ugandan experience, because I chair a public accounts committee in Uganda, responsible for state enterprises and statutory authorities. But just before, we're listening from my colleagues, I don't know, it appears clear that we have different public finance management frameworks. And part of our approach as Afro-Pac is to harmonize the public finance management framework. Number one, I have not had the role of the accounting officers and who supervises them. Because if you had a supervisor for accounting officers, I would not see this happening. That someone would not be able to submit the accounts in a timely manner when he is supervised. Accounting officers are supposed to enter into performance contracts. And part of the performance contracts is to ensure timely execution of the budget as required. That's number one. If accounting officers were to do their work in a timely manner, then you would go to the next segment. Then in the entire cycle of the relay, as you called it, you would know who is to blame. Because once the accounting officer submits the next level, which is Accountant General. We would see if it is the Accountant General who is delaying the implementation. Then from that, you would go to the Auditor General, you would come to the PSCs. I have not had a situation where you are implementing a budget beyond the lifetime of a budget. What I know is that certain activities may remain unimplemented. In that case, you roll them over and they become part of the subsequent year's budget. And once you have rolled them over to the subsequent year, it means that that portion which you have implemented is audited within the audit year. After that, I think I was also intrigued by what Frederick said. Apparently, the blame goes to politicians, but I think it is a cycle and a circle. You start with the technical people. If the technical people do not do their work, we will not do our work because they feed into us. Number two, it is also interesting to know that there are certain accounts which take a public coin and the Auditor General has no mandate to audit that. It's very, very interesting. I thought it should be like this, that every taxpayer, wherever it goes, the Auditor General must have the mandate to audit it. That is what constitutes him to be Auditor General. And I think it's something that the Nigerian Parliament, my colleagues, Honorable Salam and team, you may have to address your minds to. Every coin must be audited by or under the authority and sanction of the Auditor General. Now, leveraging on technology, it relates.
On that, what I hear you say is that dichotomy between only auditing certain aspects of the budget and leaving the agencies to audit themselves must be addressed.
Certainly.
The general should be given the power to audit every penny, every code.
With critical urgency, because the trend has changed. There has been a shift from spending through ministries. We have created statutory authorities and state enterprises which consume a larger budget than the mainstream ministries. You cannot ask those people to audit themselves. It doesn't happen anywhere except in Nigeria, and it is got to be addressed. It does not. And forgive me if I sound undiplomatic. I'm now speaking as a parliamentarian, and I'm an extended Oga in the Nigerian parliament. So I think it has got to be addressed. The Auditor General must be empowered. And that part of our discussion today is empowering the Auditors General, the Supreme Court audit institutions. Independence, empowerment, and capacity building. I think I would talk about capacity building in respect of parliamentarians and their staff. You know, I was asking the deputy chair of the PSC, House of Representatives, and I said, what is the minimum academic qualifications for a member of parliament in Nigeria? And he said something equivalent to our secondary school, senior secondary school, which is the same case with us. Now, Nigerians are known across the globe to be the most highly educated on the continent. I heard from introductions here, you were talking about PhDs, etc., and so on and so forth. Now, the accounts are prepared by somebody with a PhD with 20 years experience, and you have a parliamentarian of advanced level, secondary school, to do the oversight over those accounts. And that one is not in Nigeria. It is in my country. It is in my country too. We make it even worse. We call it advanced level or its equivalent. Now, its equivalent means someone has not been able to achieve advanced level education. But through some courses, he went for a military course somewhere of doing physical fitness, you equate it and say let that one go and supervise a PhD holder. There is a problem. The solution, of course, is capacity building. The solution is capacity building for both parliamentarians and their staff to be able to understand. I am a lawyer myself. And you know, the qualification for doing law was failing mathematics. Having failed to persuade the teachers that I can do good mathematics and good accounting, I went and did law. I have a Master of Laws. I may even have a PhD in law. Will I understand those accounts? Finally, because time seems to be against us, how do we leverage on technology? The first thing is to equip and train. What I had the chairman say here, and I agree with him, it is the same case with us, is that we still have members of parliament who are not even able to do their oversight using digital mechanisms. The world has gone digital. Let the uncompromised staff or researchers and so on and so forth attached to MPs do the digital part, and then the MPs will do the political oversight. If you will indulge me, finally, on this, honorable colleagues, distinguished participants here, the cycle is as follows. Was it the egg or the chicken that came first? Nigerians, like Ugandans, like Kenyans, must address the question of where we have the deficit. If a voter wants his wife to deliver, he wants the best doctor. Not so? If you want to take your son or daughter to a secondary school, primary school, or kindergarten, you want them to be educated by the best teacher. Not so? When it comes to voting your leaders, in some cases, if not most cases, you want to vote the person who has given you something. In other words, you are not looking for the best. I'm delighted that for your chair is a lawyer like me. The deputy chair is an accountant. That combination can work. How about situations where the person chosen to take on the mantle, okay, is the best in terms of giving? We could be responsible for what we are reaping. Thank you.
Okay. As we round up, one very important issue has come up. And I will take my cue from the byline in the subtopic, which says Supreme Audit Institutions and Legislative Oversight. But the byline specifically went on to say, enhancing independence and impact. In what ways can the audits function help improve or achieve impact? Because that is very, very important. And unfortunately for us, the focus has usually been on compliance audits. The way to measure impact is when we start doing performance audits. I think that is very important. If we continue to focus on compliance, you collected 5,000, you didn't retire it. You were allocated 100 million, come and account for it. But can we start asking, to what extent was that 100 million able to address the issues of Nigerians? Did that 100 million achieve the objective that money was devoted in the first place? So it's not just spending the money and accounting for it in terms of Naira and Kobo, but also delivering the desired results. So I'll just take Ifeanyi and Honorable, 1 minute each. Value for money. How can the Auditor General or the audit person and the PAC help Nigeria achieve value for money?
Thank you very much, John. And I think this is one of the most exciting questions this afternoon, because the ultimate aim of the budget is to serve the purpose. Is to serve the purpose of delivering services to the citizens. And that is where the performance audit comes into play. Now, there are fundamental issues that we have to address, and we've highlighted all of that, which means even our compliant audit currently as it is has significant challenges, and that has to be fixed. We need to fix that first. But in fixing that, we must also be prepared to transit to performance audits, which means we need to set up the system, the enabling legislation that enables the Auditor General, is back again to the Auditor General, the competencies, the capacity, and the institutional framework that is required for the Auditor General and the team to be able to do performance audits. And there is some alignment already existing, because the federal government of Nigeria have a delivery unit already where indicators are set for ministers, and those indicators are output and outcome focused. So it is important to create that alignment between the institution of audit and that of, and all of these are set within the budgetary framework. Again, it is back to the budgetary framework. But it is crucial that we must also look at the already existing investments that will enable us to do performance audits. The federal government invested hugely on integrated financial management information system. If the GIFMIS, should we be struggling? No. We shouldn't be struggling if we already have GIFMIS available. You upload your budget, the account should be generated from the GIFMIS. That's everything should have been automated, including procurement. So the technology already exists, but there are severe challenges on the operationalization of those technologies. So there needs to be an alignment, and the opportunity already exists. The technology exists, but the fundamental framework, the legislation to back all of this, and above all, like we say in Nigeria, and I'm looking at the parliamentarians, the political will to do all of that, including the performance management system for the individuals, including the Accountant General and his team, and I like what our colleague from Uganda has said. There must be consequences. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we've identified all the issues involved, was being able to put them into action. And when you talk about performance audits, it's area we are lacking. It's an area we are not addressing our minds to it. In fact, it's secondary, not primary. But we should turn it to primary things we need, because in most cases, not even the amount spent, but what is the value of the project itself. You see people trying to create a sea in the desert, which they need for irrigation or something, or people trying to spend huge money creating desert inside sea. I think that the performance should be tied to needs and adding value. If money spent without giving the people value, then it goes to nullity. But if you look at the budget cycle too, to what extent are the people involved? If you look at that, it becomes faulty. Therefore, I make bold to say that our legislators have got a lot to do. I pray that they have the political will to do it. But again, going by the envelope system, how can they do it? They are not permitted to tear the envelope. And the envelope is too narrow to get something to do. The chairman mentioned here that he was shocked when he saw 2 million naira for a solar project. It's an indicator that that project never existed. So if you go by performance, there is no way you can pass that. So we should be able to hold accountable for those who put sums that cannot perform, that cannot do that. That is why some projects you require designing, costing, before you can even budget. But those things are not there. So we should address our mind. We should make it part of it. Budget is a critical aspect of it, just like auditing. Therefore, like other clients in US, they have budget offices that look at budget independently and advise parliamentarians how to do it and what to do it. The political will, the independence should be, in most cases enough, budgets are predetermined. They are predetermined, they bring it to you, you're not allowed to add, you're not allowed to subtract. When parliamentarians try to do, they term it padding or or whatever, and so on. Meanwhile, they are budget writing legislators. They ought to be able to delete entirely, add, subtract, minus, and tinker the way they deem fit. That is their constitutional right. But the public will look at it otherwise. But performance auditing should be a developing or area that should emerge seriously, to be sure. Otherwise, how can you look at a project that will cost 100 million naira, you put it 30 million naira? In fact, you are giving the procurement people or the contract authority to squander that money without looking at it. We should look at that critically. Thank you very much.
We can't live without hearing from you one last time, in 1 minute. And if the chairman are here, if there is one prayer you want, you are given opportunity to say in 1 minute, what will be that your silver bullet?
Thank you very much. We all know that the Office of Auditor General needs administrative and financial independence. It's very, very important. Like the performance audit, if we are talking about, we have more than 50 trained and satisfied performance audits, but we cannot do it. Why? Because we don't have the fund. It's very important. And I want to let the National Assembly and everyone here to know that there's need for us to invest heavily on the processes, people, and technology if we want not to be left behind. It's very, very important. Thank you.
Please, can we give our panelists a round of applause? The Auditor General of the Federation, on behalf of these colleagues from the states and local government levels, are making a declaration. They are willing to work. They have the capacity to do it, but they need the enabling environment. They need to be supported. And one of the areas they need to be supported is by enhancing the level of independence, both in terms of operations, both in administrative terms, and also in terms of financing. And they also, and the legal framework, and they need the resources. The current funding is not sufficient. And that is why they are struggling. And they are willing to work with the PSC, willing to work with other stakeholders to enthrone accountability in governance. But let me, okay.
I think from AfroPac's perspective, let's make one commitment, is with willingness, we can offer technical support in terms of review of the legal framework and, of course, best practices. We could work out something. This thing called performance audit, I think in other jurisdictions we call it the Treasury Memorandum, is supposed to be audited by the Auditor General. It is also brought back to Parliament and oversight is conducted over it. But it will not be effective if you are executing a budget for over 4-5 years. It will not be effective. You must come up with a framework of concluding the backlog so that you're on track. 2, financial independence should include recruitment, disciplining, and firing. And that should be vested with the Auditor General. Empower the Auditor General to do his work. He will make your work very easy. Thank you.
Finally, I want to congratulate the House, the PACs. People ask, what are you doing? And I'm proud to see what is published here. House Public Accounts Committee recovers 86.5 billion. 86.5 billion in oil sector revenues. Another 199.9 million from Zenith Bank, GTB, through remitter investigation. This is just within 2 years. A lot is also happening at the states, but everybody is shouting EFCC. Nobody is talking about the PACs. Nobody is talking about the huge resources and recoveries that the Auditor General makes yearly. I think together, working together, we can achieve much more. Please, let's give ourselves a big round of applause and congratulations to the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give them another round of applause, please. We thank the moderator, Mr. John Motu, and of course, all the other panel discussants. If you will permit me, we'll take reaction from the participants after the technical workshop breakout. We'll go for technical workshop breakout. When we return, we will be taking reaction from this particular plenary session, and of course, we'll also take reports from the technical workshop breakout. Mr. Chairman, am I good? Thank you. We thank you very much. Can the chairman join them? We'll take group photograph up here. The chairman, House Committee on Public Accounts. The chairman Senate is not here. No, here. While they are taking the group photograph, let me thank the chairman, CEO, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Barrister Victor Morako, for joining us today again. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. Thank you, sir. And of course, I can see so many honorable members that are still here with us. The participants are from state assemblies, state agencies, local governments. We're not taking you for granted. We thank you for participating in this conference. May I, at this point, invite Ambassador, where's Ambassador? Dr. Chinedu Okereke, to please announce the modalities for the, sorry, Dr. Chibuzo Okereke, to announce the modalities for the breakout.
You have given me 3 names since we started this. Thank you very much. Thank you for the last panel, for the insights that you shared. Please, part of the strategic objective of this conference is also to equip our participants with technical skills and practical examples. And we have invited subject matter experts, renowned people in their field, and they are going to be helping us to navigate the next session. The next session is very critical and important. It's the technical breakout session, and we have track A and track B. The track A, those that will be in track A are going to the Kano Hall. If you open the program in page 21, and from this eye, from my left this way, are in that track A. And the first topic that will be treated there is public procurement integrity, tackling ghost projects and overpricing. And that will be taken by Engineer Mrs. Margaret, who is the president of Nigerian Society of Engineers, and she will also be supported. The topic 2 in that section, after 1, we take 2. And all these things will happen within 30 minutes to 40. Audit institutions and at subnational levels, capacity, independence, reform, and legislative oversight without borders. So everyone in that track A, which is being coordinated by distinguished Senator Osita Mwebonyi Onyeka Rada, and is being represented. Then for the track B, the coordinator is our own revered Honorable Tunji Akiosi, who is a member of PAC, member of the Nigerian House of Representatives. He's the coordinator, and track B will be happening right in this hall. The first topic for track B will be Government Integrated Financial Management Information Systems, Federal and State Adaptation. And we have the Accountant General of the Federation and Dr. Chinedu Okeke, PhD, who is a financial management system expert.
The topic 2 we handle from fragmentation to integration, open government data, and the harmonization of accounting standards and practices at subnational and local government levels. And we have our own very distinguished erudite professor of accounting, Professor Miriam Ishaku, who is in the Modibo Adama University, Yola. All these subject matter experts are already in the room. We are taking off immediately with this session, so I will encourage the coordinators, everyone on this aisle, to kindly go to the Kano Hall. Kano Hall is just the hall above here. Please, we are starting immediately. Ushers, please. Your resource person, the coordinators will communicate time to you, and we are converging, we'll reconvene here back in the next 40 minutes, and we will take a plenary. So there will be reports from the breakout sessions that will be presented here, and then questions on the last plenary. So I will encourage our coordinator and ushers, those of us, half of this place, you are part of Kano. From this where chairman is seated, we are all going up. Yes. From this to the camera, we are going up. If you can see the officer has stood up, so we should all follow him. Those of us here, you are going to Kano Hall. If you go there, you'll be amazed the beautiful thing that have been put together. These people here, don't tell them what you will see in Kano Hall, please. No camera is allowed. Don't tell them what you will see there. Get our ushers to usher them to Kano Hall. We have our facilitators there already. The first topic will be on public procurement integrity that will be taken by the Nigerian Society of Engineers President. It's going to be a slide presentation. So we expect you to use the writing pad we gave you to take notes. And then we will report back when we... So those of us here, you can come closer and occupy the seats this way. Please, can we come to the center, those of us here? So let me invite, I invite, yes, he's coordinating, Honorable, where is, your coordinator, please, those of us here, can you come and sit in the center? Because it's a workshop, actually. Can we come? You go back to your seat, but come this way, sit here. Media people, share yourself into two. Some. No, that is a joke. The phone camera, media, the media people, you are allowed to go to Kano Hall. The camera I meant is phone camera, so that they will not tell people what is happening there. It's secret. So I invite the coordinator of this session, our own Right Honorable Akiosi, to take over, coordinate here, and invite the resource person to start. God bless you.